The auction items, the first part is the meeting minutes. I looked them over. I don't see anything wrong with them. I don't know if anybody else has got a comment on them.
Move approval of the minutes.
Okay. The Dunedin service charges. Cassandra?
I thought so. Do we need to vote on accepting?
Oh, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
All in favor for accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Okay.
Are you really?
No.
He's not
All right. I'm sorry. Okay, so the second part is Dunedin service charges. Now we're up. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So last month we talked about the service changes for October 2017 and how we were looking at the entire system for efficiencies. And there was some discussion about the services within Dunedin and the connecting areas, so from Tarpon Springs to Clearwater pretty much, where there were some issues with the routes and some things that we wanted to take a second look. So while the majority of the recommendations from staff were approved for October 2017, there were just a few that we saved for now. Since that time, we've been talking to the staff at the Jolly Trolley. We've been talking to some city officials, as well as some of our track members about some of the ideas that we have. And at the same time, there's been circling over in the finance department some changes with the budget, some good news over there. And so the proposal that we have for you today to move forward with October service changes still. Oh, that's really good. Thank you. It might be off. Still in line with the bus plan, still in line with the 2015 path forward, and still in line with what the track that we're down in terms of our multi-phase plan and putting this together. But we do need to take a look at this now and make some decisions in order to be prepared for the October service change. So you have in front of you two maps, which are probably easier to read than the PowerPoint. And I just put this up quickly so that people have tendency to look forward and have a better time with having both opportunities to look at both the PowerPoint and maps at your desk, and it'll be easier for the public who's live streaming to see this as well. But these are the current routes through Dunedin, again, connecting from Clearwater all the way up to Tarpon Springs, but focusing in on this area. And we wanted to make some adjustments. Our proposal last time included a 7-day-a-week Jolly Trolley service and streamlining the Route 66, as well as moving the Route 61 from downtown Dunedin, going straight across 580 to Countryside Mall. So then we got some mixed reviews about those. So our new proposal is this. And just focus on the map for just a moment, is the red line is the proposed Jolly Trolley Coastal. This primarily follows the same routing that the Jolly Trolley would do now, with two exceptions. One is that the service in the north end to Ozona would remain the same, meaning it would not go from to a 7-day-week service. It would remain a 2.5-day service as it is now, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. So Ozona and that part of the county would receive the same as what they're getting, with no change. The other potential change is to look at a seasonal deviation, so that would happen during the spring training season. The Jolly Trolley would come across Sunset Point, go up Douglas, go past the Blue Jays Stadium, and then come back on Lyndhurst. So for the majority of the year, follow Edgewater, and for part of the year, use Douglas. For the Route 61, we are recommending, this currently goes up Douglas, and the recommendation after the last few weeks of talking to a bunch of folks is for this to continue up Douglas, come across on Union, and go up Patricia, continue service to the rec center on Michigan as well as the high school, and then continue across to Countryside Mall. This has a little additional cost, but we know from the budget savings of some other areas that we could do this within the fiscal year 17 budget. We would continue to look at the 66 as a limited service, again, 3 trips as we proposed last time, 3 trips in the morning, 3 round trips in the afternoon. It would be more of a commuter service, and this would use Patricia as it does now. The Route 78, we had originally said let's not make any changes because it's one of our best routes and it connects downtown Clearwater to the mall. And it said based on some of these other changes and the desire to have continued coverage on Douglas to serve the senior center and the library, as well as the stadium, is to look at moving this service from Milwaukee using Union and then go up Douglas. So in the previous slide, you see how the green line, which is Route 78, uses Milwaukee to get into downtown Dunedin, connects to the hospital, and then goes across the mall. In our proposal, would come over to Douglas, go all the way up Douglas to 580, connected at the same location on Milwaukee on Main Street to the hospital, and then go across to the mall. And then again, the final proposal for the Dunedin Palm Harbor connector is to continue it from Countryside Mall into Safety Harbor, where this is a part of the Route 62 change. And so this is the new recommendation. I think that based on our conversations with folks, we do want to keep things as stable as possible and do have provide the coverage that the City of Dunedin is looking for. These still do, outside of the City of Dunedin, it still makes the connections that we need to Tarpon Springs, Clearwater, and Safety Harbor, but this could work. So the changes, in this case, the 7-day-a-week Jolly Trolley service would come out of the service redesign, and extending the Route 61 to Countryside Mall would come out of the budget savings. In addition to this, in the next presentation, we'll start to talk about what we would do if we had some extra money in terms of putting that back into service. What we found is those additional savings, in addition to being able to do the extension of the Route 61, we can now look at the Route 78, which again, this is one of the best routes that we have in the system, and put a couple extra evening hours on that service. That does a couple things. One, it matches better with the closing times of the mall, and people would be able to get jobs at the mall and have service back. And also does what we've been hearing from the beach merchants and hoteliers is that people want to be able to get to the malls. If they're coming off the beach, the 78 would be the best way for them to get to the mall on a rainy day. And so this does both those things. So now they might actually be able to go to the mall for an evening movie as well as for whatever. Not a lot of slides, but a lot of talk. What questions can I answer?
Okay. Has Mayor Bujowski or Commissioner Eggers had a chance to take a look at it?
Mayor Bujowski has had more than you would imagine.
She drew herself.
What I am presenting to you right now, yes.
Okay.
I think she would be quite pleased. I would lay money on it.
Okay. That more than answers my question.
Commissioner Eggers, I do not believe has seen this.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Actually, I guess I should ask if you talked to him.
I've talked to him about it. I don't think he's seen the latest version.
Okay, so should we gonna recommend this to the board?
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
If I might, the track saw this last night. The layman has also seen this, a lot of it, very often over the last couple weeks.
The chair of track
Chair
who lives
of
in
track,
Dunedin.
who lives in Dunedin and rides the bus, so she's co-author, I would say. She was quite pleased with this as well. I think that there is, I've talked to Rosemary a little bit about service in the Jolly Trolley. So, you know, this is doable, but it would be preferred to have it be consistent, a consistent annual route as opposed to a seasonal route. So that was those were the positive and not so positive comments. Overall, the track did not have a quorum at the time, but they did have a roundtable consensus that they would support this.
Okay. Do we have a motion to support this?
I'll move to approve it.
Second.
Okay.
You may have an opportunity to take some.
I'm sorry, would anybody like, yes.
Rosemary Windsor, Jolly Trolley. Sandra and I have worked on this map, all the renditions throughout the time. And in the spirit of cooperation of what you're trying to accomplish with some of your routes, and based on consistency for us, which is paramount when we're transporting locals and tourists a lot, is, you know, we would love to see this route to be consistent. As far as we have driven it with the trolley, we know that it's effective, it will work. Go down Sunset to Douglas to Lyndhurst and back out and still service all of Main Street. So I just want to give our consideration to you of saying that, you know, we would be happy to run it consistently 365 a year and not to just do it during spring break.
Specifically, I think the goal is not spring break, but spring training. Yeah.
Bob Clifford, Jolly Trolley. Reinforce what Rosemary was saying here. There's no additional cost for us to be consistent on the dotted line going Sunset to Douglas and back down. The area that would be cut out there is more of a spectacular view type of thing that some people may like, but I think from a service provider standpoint to workers and to tourists, Douglas Avenue offers some pretty significant drop-off points there. And although some of it would duplicate the 78 route, I think in this case duplication is good. The frequency would be greater. People would have a greater opportunity going down Douglas. Some of the points along Douglas there's a senior center which operates, you know, year-round. There's also a veterans VFW on there, as well as one of the major employers in Dunedin who has expressed to Elaine that, and to one of our board members who is a client of theirs, that they have employees that ride the Douglas route quite frequently. So it would, you know, provide greater frequency, and frequency is good when you're transporting public transportation.
Yes, ma'am. Would you like some?
Sure. Sue Eaton, Director of Operations at the Jolly Trolley. I just want to reiterate what both my co-people have stated about running the route consistently. It's not only consistency for our drivers and getting information to communities out there, it's also enables passengers, because we get a lot of word of mouth from the tourists who say, oh, ride the trolley, it goes from here. So I think it would help to build the ridership and consistent ridership, and I think we'd see an increase in that.
So,
Yes, ma'am.
so is there an increased cost to doing it that way that we're talking about during spring training?
No. So there's no increased cost. And I think that the decision that you're making today is about these general changes and doesn't have to be about the specific routing. I mean, we can work we can work that out over the next few weeks, as we start to develop the schedules more deeply. So I don't think it affects your decision-making today, that particular issue. And it's a relatively minor thing, and we can proceed with the route development because it is a very small portion of the route itself. And the 7-day-a-week Jolly Trolley service and the change on the 66 is probably more at the policy level than this particular route initiative.
Not to complicate this more, but that being said, I am fairly confident, at least as of 48 hours ago, that PSA board member from representing Dunedin would not support the recommendation to run 365 along the dotted line. But I think the idea of launching the 7-day-a-week service is very well supported down in Clearwater, all the way up, as you know, and to try it out in the spring training of 2017. Run it on Edgewater as it does today until spring training 2017. Launch it to go by the Blue Jays Stadium, and then maybe it becomes so successful and popular, as you're suggesting, that maybe it then becomes permanent. I think she would support sort of phasing it in like that, seeing how it goes. But maybe you've talked to them more. I don't know. We did suggest that it be permanently on Douglas, and that was not. There was some concern about the residents who live along Lyndhurst not wanting that. So again, at least the recommendation, I would say, still stands as it's shown on the map, that we would have this spring training deviation, at least for spring training 2017, and then do an assessment of whether maybe making it permanent or not.
It's getting down in the weeds, but why Lyndhurst rather than Beltrees?
We took a look at Beltrees from a safety security standpoint, and the roadway is too narrow to operate a vehicle. And so Lyndhurst was a recommendation by the Jolly Trolley, and then took the trolley out to look at some other east-west options.
Because Lyndhurst is more residential than Beltrees. Beltrees goes
They're about the same.
north side of the school, north side of the stadium.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can do this, and then if it looks like it's really turning along, then maybe at a later point we can think about moving it on. So we had a motion and a second. All right. Shall we approve this? Who's in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. So this will send to the, we'll send this to the committee next week. The next part is the 217 millage rate. Debbie Louise and Cassandra.
This is on, by the way. Thank you. You're already on.
Excellent. Today I'm going to talk about the proposed budget for next year, where we are this year. Some of you may have heard this. I think Commissioner Jones has probably heard it all at once, but that's okay. We'll go through it because it's going to lead us up into what can we do with the millage rate. And that is what we'll be voting on at the board meeting this month, is we set the tentative rate for the two mills. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we are today, where we are going forward, taking a look at our strategic planning and benchmarking, and then what could we do if we increase the ad valorem rate. So where we are today, we are looking at, on the third line down on here, a projected surplus as of this point in time of $767,000. Our revenues are below budget. Lower passenger fares are driving that. But our property tax is doing well. and that's helping to offset it. And I always give Michael a lot of credit because his interest income is doing extremely well to help us out. And our expenses are well under budget by $2.5 million. Staff has done a phenomenal job of coming up with cost-saving ideas, holding positions open, different things to help us offset the decrease in passenger fares. So our anticipation is we are not only going to be able to set aside in reserves $2.6 million that we had initially anticipated in the budget, but an additional $767,000 for a total of almost $3.4 million. This will be our 5th straight year of savings. Not only has it been a good financial year, but it is also 2016 is a year of a lot of accomplishments. We set forth a lot of goals for this year. We have accomplished everything that's set out there. The one box that isn't checked yet is on some board workshops or board governance training. We've held some workshops this year. We're taking a look at what we might do going forward to check that box as well. As we look forward into next year, we're looking at one of our key areas is outreach. So we're adding 2 new positions in support of that. A community outreach coordinator as well as a media coordinator. We've also taken a look at some of the more mundane things in our budget, such as cutting our costs and shifting schedules. And in doing so, we're able to improve our website. We are targeting specific routes for marketing campaigns and also community outreach and branding in certain areas. The other thing we like to look at is how do we compare to our peers? And PSTA is a part of the American Bus Benchmarking Group, the ABBG. So that gives us areas where we can see where we need improvement and where we can capitalize on our strength. One area we found where we needed improvement was training. Despite putting a lot of effort and a lot of time into training our maintenance staff over the last few years, we still came in 17 out of 19 in the benchmarking group for training hours. So in next year's budget, we've set aside $200,000 for training, a 26% increase over this year. We've got some exciting programs in there. PSTA University, which is basically the classes and conferences that we go to. Something very special, Leadership PSTA. And that is almost going to be a year-round course where we are going to be taking selected people within the authority who are high potential employees. And it'll be our next leaders here at PSTA. Another area, as you know, is our biggest assets are our buses. They're sitting out there. We've added an additional 10% to the budget to maintain not only the buses, but our facilities. And of course, it's also been a topic of discussion for the capital budget as well. And HART is spending another $10 million on non-bus needs, on non-rolling stock. Well, they get a lot of additional help from the county as well as the MPO through something called ST3 dollars for buses. We were just talking about how we can change things in routes, and one area that we fell short in is we ranked 13 out of 19% of seats filled. Now, when you increase the hours of service, you increase the frequency of service, this is what is going to drive ridership up. So one of the things we will be thinking about is can we use the ad valorem tax increase to the maximum millage to be able to accomplish that? So our values are going up, not values, but the property tax itself is going up from this year's projection to next year by $2.9 million. That $2.9 million is helping to offset the lower fare revenues that we're seeing. We also have increases in other areas. I talked about maintenance, that's our supplies. We have diesel fuel going up. We've also got the expansions we just talked about at about $250,000, as well as salaries and benefits going up as we have forecasted, amongst other miscellaneous items. So if we take a look from where we are at to where we're going, you can see in the third column over, our proposed budget for next year is balanced by $78,000. Again, a huge increase we're seeing in property taxes is helping to offset some of the other loss that we have seen. So what can we do about increasing ridership? if we increase the ad valorem to the maximum millage, I'm sure we can find ways of increasing service. So in summary, our budget for next year is strong. We are basing it on our strategic plan as well as how we can improve on areas based on benchmarking. And I'm going to turn it over to Stan because I'm sure she's got some ideas on what to do with $1.1 million.
To do. So if you look at the back of your package, it may be a little bit easier to see the summary of what I'm going to present. So we've been taking a look at our routes. You have it as a handout. You don't have it. We've always taken a look at our routes and how they're performing to see where we can make tweaks during every service adjustment. We do the service adjustments, even though you're seeing a lot of it right now. We do them 3 times a year. So we took a look at what areas we were doing really well at, what areas we needed to expand some service, and what we could do with these additional dollars if we do raise the millage to the cap. We took a look at making the service primarily, first and foremost, consistent. So taking anything that we were running on Sunday and making sure that it was a minimum of 60-minute service. Some of our service on Sunday can be 120 minutes, and that's really hard for people to have a reliable ride when you have to wait 2 hours for the next bus. We then took a look at Saturday service. We match Saturday service to weekday service. Again, trying to get consistency across a singular route over the course of the week. And then also we took a look at what areas we may be able to increase frequency. This is probably the most exciting piece, but this is where we have good routes is putting more into those routes really does increase the ridership. And as Debbie mentioned, it is frequency first and foremost that increases the ridership, and then that extension of service hours, again, providing a reliable trip. So our recommendations for service improvements with an additional $1.1 million would be to run these 3 routes later into the evening. And you have on your summary chart where these routes fall today versus what we would extend them to. So as an example, the Route 78 from Clearwater to Countryside Mall, it currently stops at 7:20, and we would recommend extending that to 9:20. Again, this gets you to the close of the mall, gets you to an evening out. So we would also recommend extending the Route 59. This is the portion that runs on Elmerton Road, extend that 2 hours, and then in the south part of the county, Route 14, again, run that almost 2 hours later. For Saturday frequency improvements, we looked at the entire county, balancing out the service. Again, that Route 78, which is now green, improve that to 30-minute service, so it runs 30 minutes during the week. We'll run that 30 minutes on Saturdays. 59, which runs on Ulmerton, move that to a 30-minute service on Saturdays. 73, which connects downtown Clearwater to Seminole, improve that to hourly service on Saturdays. And again, the Route 52, which is one of our most heavily used routes, make that 30-minute service as part of the Saturday improvements. In terms of Saturday extending some of those hours, some of those same routes, the 78, the 52, and the 59, we would also recommend extending those. But we've also thrown in the 7 and the 14 as extending those Saturday service. Again, trying to match more closely what happens on Saturday with what is happening during the weekday. For Sunday frequency improvements, again, looking at the Route 78, moving that to a 30-minute service. Again, keeping that consistently across 7 days a week. We would also recommend moving the Route 11, which connects Gateway to South St. Pete, to an hourly service every 60 minutes. The 14 and the 23 also move those to hourly service. And then for Sunday extensions, we looked at a number of routes across the county, and I won't read all of these out. But we do have some nice coverage in the core routes and our frequent locals, taking those and extending those hours and more closely matching the service that we provide every day. You have in your packet, and again, I know this is hard to read up here, but you do have it in front of you, and it is on the website to take a look at what the summary of all these services are. You'll notice that I did leave in for the 78 the weekday, the last trip from 7:20 to 9:20. This will be accomplished through our fiscal year 17 budget, which was the vote you just took for the 78. But I left it on here so you could see some of the other improvements that we were going to make altogether. So that would be in its entirety the service improvements that we would make for the year.
I'm sorry, so 78 weekday is already budgeted?
The 78, yes, 78 weekday, that first bit would be part of the fiscal year 17 budget. So you see I've made the change up there, but you didn't get into it.
Do you want to give a quick update on what Track thought of this?
Was it another woo-hoo? I think it was pretty much, it could have been a Yahoo, but it was like something like that with an exclamation point.
Do we have an idea of how much, I mean, this whole thing is going to cost $1.1 million. Do we know how much each of these things are going to cost, or is it broken out that way? Does it make sense to do it that way, or should we just figure this is what it's going to cost?
You mean like each line item, like
Yeah.
what each,
Or each,
each
group?
little bit of this?
Yeah.
Well, yes.
Well, not each line, but say.
Yes, I can look at the spreadsheet downstairs. I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood.
I'm just, I mean, we're going to do everything on Sunday, so do we know what the Sunday improvements are going to cost versus the Saturday improvements and so forth and so on?
Yes, not off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I can add those for the board meeting if you'd like. On these slides, and tell you what this grouping costs. Does that help?
Well, if I'm looking at it,
Yeah.
I'm understanding that we're going to spend $1.1 million.
Right.
And I'm fine with that, but I don't understand exactly how it's going to be happening. Is one thing going to cost more than another? Or?
So maybe some quick summary. With not having the ability to increase the number of buses in our fleet, we can only increase frequency. How frequent the buses come and put more buses on the road on the weekends when we run less service and we have extra buses sitting here.
Yeah.
So the increases in frequency you see are only on Saturday and Sunday. The Saturday and Sunday improvements you see is, as you can see, there's a lot more stuff that we're proposing on Saturday and Sunday than on a weekday. That's because there's only 52 Saturdays, 52 Sundays a year, and there's 257 weekdays a year.
Very good.
And I've seen the spreadsheet, memorized it, especially Don Eaton. So that's why there's a whole bunch more things proposed on Sunday. Historically, PSTA has had about half the service we run on a regular weekday run on Saturday, and then about 2/3 of what's running on Saturday then runs on Sunday. So the least amount of service runs on Sunday. But our ridership, as we talked about at the Finance Committee earlier today, we have a very high proportion of service employees that work 7 days a week. And tourists, we get just as many riders running on the beach and whatnot on the weekends as we do during the week or more. Our profile doesn't really fit the normal weekday more than the Saturday and Sunday. That's why we are proposing to really focus on the weekends as a start.
But if there's information you'd like to see on here that helps you make a decision about it, then I'd like to know that.
No, I love the idea of expanding all of these things, but it seems like when we do one thing or another, is there a unit cost for the for the people? Is that how we figure it, or?
Yeah.
Would you be interested, Mr. Chairman, in knowing of this $1 million plus investment, how much of the investment is going toward improving weekday service, how much is going to improving Saturday service, and how much is improving Sunday service? I think it would be interesting to know that. I don't know that I would make a decision differently.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, because you're, yeah,
If you can just sort your spreadsheet.
We could do that.
that would make it, yeah. There's only, yeah.
I had another comment, if I may have, but it goes back to actually Debbie's presentation. And the, just the use of the terms projected surplus.
And then select two.
Yeah, on slide 2, yeah. Budgeted transfer to reserves. I just was wondering, rather than saying to reserves, budgeted set aside for future bus purchases. Something, just the fact that we anticipated not to build reserves, is when by tax, have that for tax just go in reserves. But we're really going to use this for
Yeah, well,
bus purchases.
you're just kind of saying where they're spoken for, or
Yeah.
planned for.
Plan for
For
bus purchases.
Yeah, for the capital.
Future bus purchases.
That's right.
So I assume that the increase in the millage, that was based on if we cap out?
Yes.
And I remember when we discussed this last year, we figured out what that impact would be on a homeowner with the average $100,000 home. It's like $1.80 a year or something.
$1.98.
$1.98.
0.019. Would you like to know how it really works? Because I went to the property appraiser.
You did?
So that's,
And-
right, so that's if
Human
you
calculator.
own a
Yeah.
home That's $150,000
Well, I-
value, and then, and
Right.
homestead exemption, that would be $1.98.
Got it. Okay.
Actually, the average market value of the homes in Pinellas County are $189,581. Their average taxable value is $113,000. Adding the .7305 to the 7.3 increases them by $2.21. So 50% of the people would be paying $2.21 or less. And if you take that up to they broke this out a couple of different ways. If you have residential condos, they'd be paying maybe $2. Residential mobile homes, $5.55. You get to commercial, and they have got an average taxable value of $622,000. So somebody who's got a $620,000 home is going to be paying an extra $12.14. So
Less than lunch.
that's, yeah, less than lunch. I'm a decent bottle of wine. Decent glass. But it's not a lot. It's a single person, and that's the whole thing for a year. So this is how the Pinellas property appraiser works it out, and it's not a lot of money.
I have a couple of follow-up questions or comments. I think I've stated this at this committee before, but I just wanted to emphasize it again, that at the MPO level and when we talk about STP funds for PSTA, it was noted by the chairman that PSTA did not vote to cap out our ad valorem last year, and that was noted with mild prejudice. But, and he stared at the PSTA commissioners who did not vote to raise the ad valorem. My other comment is, and I'm not sure that this would have any bearing on my decision, but I do know that in St. Pete, the administration is proposing a very small millage rate reduction, so I don't know what other cities are doing, but I just don't know how it's going to look in the mix of things if everybody else is proposing millage reductions, even minor ones, and we're deciding to go up. It might be worth discussing, but I think with these numbers and what our needs are, and it's our job to provide higher service, that may not be much bearing on our decision.
We're one of the down, but it's just minute.
Yeah,
Right. As a business owner in Pinellas County, I can't tell you how many times I've interviewed people that I would love to have for the positions I have open. I can't get there on Sunday, and half of the time, Saturday, the way that it runs. These expansions, because they live in St. Peter, they live in Dunedin. I'm just giving the city a hard time. But in reality, growing up with the blue law in Pinellas County and watching it change, and it has changed almost everything. I mean, there are very few things in Pinellas County that someone riding the bus can't access 7 days a week. And all of those places have people that work there. And so not being able to get there half of Saturday and all of Sunday has been a big problem for employment in Pinellas. So I think this is very important. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think tying the millage cap out to service improvements is the best thing we can do at this point. I mean, aside from the fact that he wants us to go forward, Pinellas wants us to do it. And all we ever hear in terms of complaints is the buses don't run late enough and they don't run often enough. So I think any incremental thing that we can do to improve that, we should do.
Okay. So, I guess what we want to convey to the commission is that we approve of increasing the rate to 0.7300, 0.7500.
So again, the recommendation at this time in July is to recommend for next week's meeting to advertise the tax rate at 0.7500, and then we'll come back in September at the budget hearings for the actual vote on what the millage rate, whether to do these services or not.
Clarification. So you can make the recommendation to start at that amount, and then in September, we can either vote to lower it, but we just can't vote. Well, I mean, I know we're capped out, but you can't go higher, you can only go lower.
Right.
So that's what we should do. Is there a...
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Third? Okay, so then we will recommend to the commission that... oh, yes, let's have a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Going to check? Okay. So then we will recommend to the commission that they advertise the 75.75.
Last year, just for those following the score at home, last year the vote we advertised a 0.75 in July on a 10 to 4 vote, and then kept the millage as is on a 7 to 6 vote.
I missed it, so it was 7.
So
Yeah, I missed the vote, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense, tying
last-
it to actual changes and improvements.
Last
Right.
year was not tied to service improvements.
Yeah.
It was only tied to setting aside for just future bus purchases.
Right.
Which was, for myself, that was a little too hard to make those changes.
Okay, so our next item is information from the Central Avenue BRT Public Workshops.
Hi,
Heather?
good afternoon. We're moving quite along. This will be quick as well.
We've had this thing's not right. Okay. We've had a busy couple of months with the Central Avenue Bus Rapid Transit project, with the project kicking off in June. The board approval of the $500,000 contribution from the Florida Department of Transportation. We've also begun evaluating the beach alternatives, which is one of the first things we need to accomplish, is to select a beach destination. We've also, it's not on the slide, but it'll be probably coming to you next month, have started working with our marketing team on branding for this project and for kind of a network of future BRT services in Pinellas County. We really want to get away from the Central Avenue name because it doesn't really run on Central Avenue. It utilizes the First Avenues for most of the corridor. So that's something we'll be bringing back to you. We also had the opportunity to host 2 stakeholder workshops. Those were on, I believe it was, well, I don't want to say today. It was the day of that tropical system, or the day after. Despite that, we did maybe not have as much attendance as we'd hoped, but we did get a nice, diverse group of stakeholders. We had hotels, we had interested citizens, we had the chambers of commerce, multiple chambers of commerce, our local jurisdictions, and some other business owners. We hosted those, one on the beach and one in downtown St. Pete. We have been holding both with planning staff and then also Brad with the city managers one-on-one meetings to go over the project and to discuss kind of some of that decision making that will be ahead of us in terms of selecting the beach alternative. Brad has presented to a couple of the city councils, Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach, to begin the conversation about possible funding partnerships. And we are continuing this. Upcoming, we have 2 workshops planned. These are more general public workshops. So we'll take the information we received from this preliminary technical evaluation we've been doing, and then also some of what we heard from the stakeholders, and present that to the general public. Those are listed here on August 1st at St. Pete College Downtown Campus, and then August 2nd at the Gibbs Campus. The presentations will be the same, so people can go to either one, but we are trying to have workshops kind of toward the beaches and then going downtown as well, every time we do workshops. We have presentations planned to Madeira Beach and to South Pasadena councils upcoming in August, again, to have those discussions about possible funding partnerships. So we would love for you all to attend these workshops or share the information on these workshops with your constituents. You get a sneak preview of the technical evaluation results. But if you are unable to attend in August, we will be bringing back to you the technical evaluation results, as well as a summary of the public comments and a summary of these conversations with the local jurisdictions. We're doing this in August because in September we would really like the board to select a preferred alignment so that we can move forward with the most cost-effective study of that one preferred alignment moving forward. And having the preferred alignment will allow us to go to the next phase, which is the environmental analysis, starting to talk about the station locations, and then also the design concepts. And that is my brief update. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. We really just wanted to give you all an update and let you know about the public workshops that are coming up.
Are we expecting Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach to get back to us? That's what the proposal is.
Johnson just asked.
Because that's what we asked them to do, and we haven't heard anything.
Right, we haven't heard anything, and then as I mentioned to her, the mayor of St. Pete Beach has moved to Paris, and they are selecting a new mayor. And so I think we kind of have to revisit it with the new mayor down there. What I'm hoping that we'll be able to do for the PSTA board in order to meet this deadline of making a decision is to have our consultant team and this public information make a recommendation based on ridership and public input to the PSTA board, sort of regardless of their membership in PSTA. At least from a user perspective, this would be the right choice. And then I think that will put maybe some pressure on whoever is selected, then we can have some serious discussion with them about how they want to pay for it. I think that will help.
Because at this point, we haven't got them to commit to doing anything yet.
Right, and they kind of, I think there's no pressure on them.
To do so.
Everyone says they would love to have it.
Yeah.
No one wants to commit to any kind of payment scheme until this becomes, I think, more real in their mind.
Yeah. So I don't know how, does it look like we're going to get them to pay anything?
Well, yes, I believe that Commissioner Welch told me that with the mayor who's now moved to Paris, he had a deal. He had reached a deal. And, the city commission of St. Pete Beach seemed supportive of an understanding that they would have to either fund it out of their own budget, the increase under our current arrangement, or as their citizens to perhaps join PSTA. And they were still interested. Trade Run, same thing, I would say maybe a little bit less of eagerness. And then we're going to go to Madeira Beach, and they'll be all in favor because they don't have to pay anything because they're already in.
Right.
Yeah. That's why it's important to get the technical input, I think.
We'll find out that most people are using to go to St. Pete Beach.
Yeah.
Well, I would suggest that right now St. Pete Beach doesn't have anything in their budget to throw in except Avalon. They don't have some budget problems right now. You think?
Tax rate is very low.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just speaking for Clearwater, we have a lot of hoteliers on Clearwater Beach that are paying pretty good sized chunk change to PSTA.
Yes, they are.
And for that to be used to subsidize service to a community that is not a member, I think would be discouraged.
Yeah, I think in our discussions with the city manager and the cities, they know that if they're not members of PSTA, they at a minimum need to pay their full way.
Their equivalent way.
Yeah.
And they were talking about going to the
They
hotels.
haven't learned how to play that game yet.
They're talking about going to the hotels, and usually they get some
They
sort
haven't
of
done it yet.
I think they had started, didn't they?
I don't care how they fund it, but it should be
Yeah.
They have other things right now that they have to fund,
Yeah.
like their sewers.
It's a special evaluation.
Well,
Well, anyhow, so it's getting them to pay is going to be, I think, a bit of a trick.
Yeah.
Well, then they don't get BRT.
thank you.
Right.
Where does it go?
It's pretty simple.
To Madeira Beach and takes a right. Left.
All right.
Okay.
To be interesting.
Stops and try to write a treasure on it, makes it believe.
Okay. Thank you. I guess that's everything. What you got?
I guess if we could go back to the previous slide. I know we're not looking at an entire map of the county, but just given, I'm sorry, the map, the BRT map, given all of the development and growth in Clearwater, are there benefits to having it go to Madeira Beach so then there could be a connection to Clearwater? Or is that on the trolley?
I think our focus on Clearwater is really trying to get funding for the express bus,
Yeah.
the airport's express bus, and then also to work with the MPO and the city on some improvements to better move traffic in bus service and people along the Memorial Causeway. That's currently our focus in Clearwater. I'm not sure what the commute patterns would be or the travel patterns from the southern reaches up to Clearwater. I don't know if we've ever analyzed that.
We have a trolley line that goes the entire stretch from St. Pete Beach up to downtown Clearwater, along Gulf Boulevard there. I mean, I don't think we have an enormous number of people that are riding that the entire beach distance, mostly ons and offs, but any of the three would make a connection.
To ride the whole, it's kind of painful to ride the whole distance. I've done
Yeah.
that.
Or
Although that was with the old buses, so these are probably.
But if I may, I think to your point, there has been a lot of controversy about a redevelopment project in the beach. So the connection there would maybe address and mitigate some of those concerns about the service provided there. So that can be a consideration. Pretty intense development at their gateway.
Anything? Okay.
No, just to follow on, the timing for the Clearwater BRT, we're looking for the funding from the legislature, even independent of the appeals, forward.
Or
For Pinellas, have to do it now. What's the timing of moving this forward?
BRT or
The express bus to the airport.
Well, I think, I'm not real sure what DOT's response would be, but the board needs to prioritize that as an NPO priority. And I think that would be a component of that request to expedite it.
Is that not a priority currently?
It's not a formal priority currently. It's an emphasis area that the board hasn't voted. But that would be a September request. In addition to that, our study, the board authorized us to begin the implementation strategy project, authorized it's a $300,000 study, and we expect to issue a notice to proceed in the next week or two. And we will be looking at short-term solutions first, with no infrastructure impact, in hopes to have maybe a pilot demonstration project that we can even have ready for spring break next year. But there'll be some longer-term capital projects that we're also exploring.
So start a pilot maybe next spring?
Potentially, yes.
But that's if it gets prioritized in September.
No, that would be independent of that. That would be just through the study to see what might be feasible, what might be working. But a longer-term commitment for capital and related infrastructure would be part of that prioritization.
And that strategy that we described, prioritizing through the Fort Pinellas, dovetails with what our legislative team suggested after the last legislative session, that the best approach to getting the express service to the airport funded would be with local MPO support, local support as a priority directly through the DOT rather than an earmark through the legislature.
And I will add that the Tri-County Transportation Management Area Leadership Group has put Express Bus as one of its regional priorities. Regional Express Bus is one of its regional priorities, probably the best way to say that. And while that's not a formal recommendation, it will be in September. And then the individual MPOs will adopt that regional priority list in September.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.
I'm on the next item.
You are, okay.
Stay here. As we had previously promised, we're trying to just update you all on a regular basis on some of the other projects we're working on. So briefly, we have started our downtown St. Petersburg circulation study, and that basically parallels the BRT study, but it's looking specifically at how we move people around downtown St. Pete post the grid, and then also looking at the looper and our current Route 32, which have a circulator function, and then our Central Avenue trolley. So the most notable thing on that is that we will also be talking about this project at those workshops that are listed here on August 1st and 2nd. So we will be having information on both projects and taking comments, and for the circulator, getting ideas of where people want to go in downtown and where those distances that are really a little bit beyond walk provide some kind of circular service. We also kind of begun to revisit our Clearwater Intermodal Center project. Over the last couple of years, we've kind of had some ongoing conversations with the city of Clearwater, and some of those were tied back to Greenlight, and then since then to the Clearwater Marine Aquarium possible relocation. So now that those things have settled out, we wanted to reopen this, and so we have engaged one of our general services consultants who's working on the scope right now. We have met with the city staff and are looking at doing some conceptual site plans, looking at traffic analysis, and getting that project through this kind of first phase of pre-project development, I guess you might call it. What's that? It's all grant funded. we have an older grant that we do need to use as well, so it's a good opportunity to use that and to get the project going again. Finally, we continue to meet regularly with the MPO and MPO staff and DOT staff to coordinate on all of our projects. The most important thing about that right now is that we are holding our joint work session next Friday, and we'll begin talking about continue talking, I guess, about how the MPO prioritizes projects and how we can improve transit outcomes. So you'll be getting that agenda very soon, the next day or two. Otherwise, I'll let Whit, he wants to update it all on the transfer area analysis which they've kicked off, or any of the other emphasis projects.
Not a whole lot to update you on, just that we're continuing to work on screening of the criteria for the transfer area analysis, and I really look at that as something that could be part of the MPO's prioritization at some point in the future to prioritize transportation alternatives program funding to improve access to transit. And parallel would be how Broward County has looked at their mobility hubs. Broward County has long, I guess in the last 5 years, adopted transportation plans that really move away from roadway widening in Broward County towards development of a more robust transportation network, public transportation and others. And they've adopted a concept called mobility hubs, where they're focusing on centers of transit access and connectivity around the county. And they've actually gotten the Florida Department of Transportation to conduct PD&E studies for the development of these mobility hubs. And that's a larger version of what we're doing for the transfer analysis. But I see us laying the groundwork for that kind of ultimately cooperation with FDOT, so that we could actually look at the infrastructure of capital and accessibility, maybe even park and ride in appropriate locations, to really look at how our modes work together. And Pinellas is not that different than Broward County, other than we're about 1 million people fewer. But it's Broward County is a much larger county geographically. So some similar parallels that we may be at in 4 to 5 years following the Broward model of mobility hub. So we're starting that framework with the transfer area analysis. We're also completing the scope of work for the Gateway Mid-County connectivity study, where one of the outcomes will be to look at the suitability of a intermodal facility in the Mid-County Gateway area, and also looking at street connections and trail connections and better bike ped connections that would complement transit service in Mid-County. And I'm hoping to get FDOT and local government funding support for that master plan, so that when we're finished with the master plan in about 2 years, it'll tie in with the completion of the FDOT HART regional premium transit study. And then you'll see hopefully an integration of the land planning and local connectivity with the regional transit connection in Pinellas County.
I was reading about I think it was the Department of Transportation saying that they want to do an MPO section so that will be region-wide rather than just the sections that we've got currently.
A single MPO instead of the 3 MPOs that we have today? Well, Florida Department of Transportation has sung from that sheet of music for quite a number of years.
But are they actually going to do it? Or
well, it's not up to them.
Oh,
And
well, is it I'm sorry, is the state or
the federal government has issued a notice of proposed rulemaking that would require MPOs that are in one planning area, one metropolitan planning area, to either consolidate or to demonstrate that they remain distinct MPOs with a unified set of planning products. So a single long-range plan, a single set of performance measures and targets, and a single transportation improvement program, so how we program our funds. And I've had conversations with Hillsborough and Pasco County about it. I think they're interested in that arrangement where we would develop a single set of planning products. And that's my recommendation that I made to our board last Wednesday. I think our board was supportive of that to demonstrate that we can work together as a region even better than we are today. I think we do a really good job of coordinating compared to other regions around the country. But having a single long-range plan with maybe a Pinellas element and a Hillsborough element and a Pasco element, I think takes us another step in that direction. And certainly the prioritization of projects at the tri-county level is intriguing, but I think it also begs the question of what are the trade-offs and what do you lose in that? Because there are certain projects that we hold pretty important here in Pinellas County that might not rise to a threshold that is important when you take that regional perspective. So I think we have to think about if something is on the regionally significant roadway network, then that becomes maybe a priority for that larger entity to deal with. But if it's a smaller transit project or a smaller roadway project, maybe it's just our MPO deals with that. So there's some questions that are unanswered. That is certainly a topic, and there is a comment period that's open until August 26th on that proposed rule. And the statewide MPO advisory council voted yesterday or Monday to send a fairly strongly worded set of comments to USDOT saying that our coordination is really good in Florida right now, and this is a very heavy-handed top-down approach. And we welcome ways to strengthen the process, but the way it reads right now is this would be left up to the governor to ultimately decide. And if the governor and the MPOs do not agree, then it's the USDOT gets to make the decision by default. And that just seems really heavy-handed. It should be a locally made decision, in my opinion. I think that's what you're getting at.
Yes.
The consolidation of the MPOs will take several years to accomplish.
Yeah.
And we just unified the PPC and MPO, and I'd like to see how that works for a couple of years before we go hauling off and creating another governance structure. But there are a lot of voices out there, so we'll have to see how they play out.
Sounds good.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
It was mentioned, the Hart Premium Transit Study. What is that?
It's in consultant selection right now.
Oh, it's still in consultant selection.
I believe the interviews are, if not next week, the week after. So they'll have a selection in August Hart board meeting, is that right?
Interviews are
Tuesday. Okay. They're working. Obviously, I'm not part of that, but one of our staff members is. So really happy that they invited, I think, PSTA. Are you involved? So PSTA and all the MPOs are involved in that selection. So that's excellent.
That's it. Future meeting subjects? February service improvements, BRT beach service.
We talked about those two items.
Okay. Is there any other business? The meeting is adjourned.
Thanks to those of you who spent the entire day with me.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.
Such as.
Thank you for being here, Whit.
My budget is Tuesday night.
Sorry, I was trying to remember what it was.
Well, maybe because of the budget season, but Rachel, I get a meeting, city manager,